Hey gang, I really messed up getting on. We're behind on June. A lot of big projects are coming up. Last night we were at Brew Society, both the Greater Maryland and DC chapters all got together. So many wonderful women hanging out, drinking beer. This is what today's episode is going to be more about. We're going to check in with Judy, we're going to check in with Maureen. I made a craft using the labels from the Pink Food Society, and you'll get a little sneak peek behind the scenes of when women get together and drink.
Pink Boost! Pink Boost!
Let's check in with who? Dr. Judy.
So at the end of the day, what's the difference between an ale and a lager? You know, you'll hear these terms thrown around a lot. And really it's two different yeast strains. Ales are fermented at a higher temperature. That's sort of the optimal temperature to work at. You get a little more body, a little more fruitiness, a little more complexity from the yeast. Lager yeasts are fermented colder, around 50 degrees, and that's where you think of a lager having that crisp, clean, sort of dry finish. Because of the temperature differences, they take different amounts of time to ferment. So the yeast is more active at higher temperatures, so that fermentation is going to finish much faster than the lager yeast, which is at colder temperatures, and it's just going to go slower. So it just needs that time to get all the sugars converted into alcohol. Also with lagers, you then need to further condition them a little bit longer, sort of bring those flavors together, and really. So ale yeasts are also top fermenting. So when you look at a fermentation that's active, you'll actually see yeast on the top bubbling. Lagers, however, ferment on the bottom. So when you look into a tank of a fermenting lager, you're not going to be able to see that same yeast sitting on top. And so some even traditional styles really switch it up. So you can take an ale yeast and treat it like a lager yeast. So a good example is Kolsch that we make. It's an ale yeast from Germany, but we ferment it at cooler temperatures, closer to about 60 degrees. So you can think about it sort of being intermediate. It takes a little bit longer than an ale, but not quite as long as a lager to ferment. And then we condition it a little bit longer than an ale, but not quite as long as a lager.
Beer history with Maureen. Okay. Well, brewing it was originally the purview of women. Actually, when colonists first came to America, it was the woman's responsibility to make the brew, just like it was to cook, tend the garden, look after the children. But even when brewing went into the hands of men, when it was industrialized for the Revolutionary Wars, when we started seeing the ramping up of production and it went out of the homes and into the commercial breweries, women were still brewers, and they still brewed even on the commercial level. Margaret Geek Butz is a perfect example. From Hesse-Darmstadt, Germany, she actually had her own brewery in Hagerstown in 1840. She had that brewery for 28 years. She brought her husband and her daughter into the brewery so she could continue the tradition.
Excited to bring you a new segment. How'd she do that? What? Gonna show you how I make these hop cones.